Good morning, and welcome to the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public meeting and public hearing for January 6th, 2026. We're going to begin by taking attendance, and I'll ask our legal counsel, Mark Silberman, to call the roll.
Vice Chair Master,
Here.
Commissioner Chen,
Yeah.
Commissioner Chu,
Here.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Here.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quembe, Commissioner Jefferson, Commissioner Mann,
Here.
Commissioner Wilder.
I want to start by saying Happy New Year and congratulations to our new mayor, Zohran Mamdani, on his inauguration. Also, I want to congratulate Layla Bozarg, the new deputy mayor for Housing and Planning. We at LPC look forward to working with Mayor Mamdani and his new administration. This meeting is being held in our hearing room at 253 Broadway on the second floor. It is also being held via Zoom and live streamed on our YouTube channel for anyone who would like to participate remotely. We're going to begin with a public hearing agenda for new applications on our designated properties. Now I'd like to turn it over to our Director of Preservation, Corey Harala.
Thank you, Vice Chair Master. We'll start today's Preservation Department agenda with public hearing item number 1, LPC 26-03586, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of the Bronx, Block 2462, Lot 42, 1130 Grand Concourse in the Grand Concourse Historic District. This is a classical revival style institutional building designed by Leo Stillman and built in 1925 to 26. The application is to alter the facade and stairs, install signage, and construct a rear yard mechanical addition.
Good morning, Commissioners. Juan Matiz from Matiz Architecture and Design.
I'm Andrew Harrington from Matiz Architecture and Design.
John Weed, Assistant Executive Director at Bronx Works.
In brief, I would offer Mr. Weed a brief introduction on what Bronx Works does here in the city of New York, and then we'll continue with the proposal.
Good morning, everyone. So Bronx Works is a nonprofit organization. We work with multiple populations in the Bronx. We're in a building that we actually merged with another nonprofit in 1993. It's a building that is going on 100 years this year, actually. It was constructed in 1926 as an orphanage. And then the YMHA took it over. From there, it was a girls' club in New York. And then we've been in there since 1993. We operate children and youth programs, workforce development. We serve a lot of people who are in housing court and have issues with rent. And then we also have senior programs and ESL. So we have about 400 or 500 people coming in and out of the building each day. So we were lucky enough to get some funding through EDC and Dormitory Authority. This was going back a few years. And we've hired Matiz Architecture and Design to help us with this project. We feel it's very important. The building is aging. We want to keep it up. So I'll turn it over to them. They'll discuss the project and the benefits of it. And thank you very much for this time.
As John said, this is the building. It's 1130 Grand Concourse. It's just at the 167th Street station of the D train. The building was constructed in 1926, as John mentioned, and the proposal, as you can see at the bottom of the slide, is to essentially restore portions of this facade, the main facade, repair and replace deteriorated steps and other architectural features. Then there is a proposal for some signage and illumination as part of the restoration, since we're doing this work, and a HVAC proposal as well. And we're going to focus on the first part of the presentation, which is the restoration work, and then we'll discuss the mechanical components of the project. These are photographs for reference. You can see the, as John mentioned, the 25-26 timeframe. This is just as the building was finishing construction on the left, and the 1940s tax photo on the right. So you can see that the building looked pretty much the same at the 1940s research. It's located, you may be familiar with the Housing Court building and the Friedman House, which is the Friedman home, which is right across the street, and sort of very elegant, wide portion of the concourse. As John mentioned, they do amazing social services, great organization. And our work essentially is to focus on the central portion of the building and also reconstruct certain components that have been stripped away from the building. On the left is a photograph of the present day image of the building. It's had a lot of windows replaced. You can see that there's a lot of air conditioning units, et cetera. And we'll see these photographs a little larger shortly. One of the key pieces of our proposal is the base of the building, which you can see on the top right. It's basically been stripped of all of its architectural features, and there's essentially a very sort of a brutal stucco wall that's present there between the two staircases that are the main entrances for the building. Since you do have to ascend these steps to get to the area where you see that 1130, that is the main entrance to the building. So folks do have to use these steps. There's now a temporary ramp that's been installed on the back of the building for accessibility. But obviously, this is a very challenging part of the existing conditions between the street level of the sidewalk and, of course, the ascension into the building. Larger version of our proposal. You can see here the sort of wall that I was mentioning on the bottom right. And the work that we are looking to, we're proposing to you today, starting at the top of the building, it's within the blue dashed area. There's restoration work that we're proposing to complete here at the portico, redoing the roof on top of this porch and balcony, the pediment, and there's a lot of paint that used to cover some graffiti and other things like that that we're going to be able to restore. Not any major removal of any of the parts, but basically a lot of surface cleaning, et cetera, all the way down that central area within the blue zone. The more sort of substantial work is in the red zone at the base of the building, and that's what we're going to sort of focus on at the time here today. When you look down in plan, at the top, you'll generally be seeing our existing conditions, and on the presentation, the lower portion will be the proposals. There's a series of elevations that you can see here from starting from the bottom at the sidewalk. You go up a series of steps, about 6 or 7, depending on where you are on the sidewalk. You arrive at these landings, and then you go laterally, and you find yourself in the central zone, which then allows you to come into the building where that 1130 was written. You can also continue up the steps, but that hasn't been done for a very long time, since essentially the upper portions of the building are closed off, and there's some very simple chains that prevent you from continuing to ascend the stairwell, so that you really are coming to that main central landing and then entering the building. In our proposal, we're looking to do a series of things that we've highlighted here in the color. Reconstructing these green piers and the steps that lead from the sidewalk up to the first landing. Reconstructing the 2 pink steps that then you find to ascend to the landing, and then introducing a ramp, which is the orange piece that takes you up essentially two risers, so that from the blue area, you don't have to go through single steps to get into the building, just to facilitate the access. We're talking about a lot of people who manage to get their stroller up the steps and have to get into the building, older adults who are coming to the programs, they're leaving the building at night, et cetera. So we are really looking to really improve as much as we could within the circumstances of what we have at the building. At the top, you see that existing elevation and the way that the steps arrive or depart from the sidewalk. And in the drawing below, the piers that we had shown you in green briefly, you can see them in elevation. We were inspired and trying to bring back the rhythm that the facade had at the streetscape. And so you can see that when we look at this, these are the same pieces that we saw in plan. So reintroducing all of these green elements which don't exist today. And we've taken advantage of bringing back the sort of fabric of the building, not identical to what was originally built, but in a slightly different version of them that we think is appropriate so that we can fulfill basically staying within budgetary limitations that we have, but doing the best that we can in our architectural proposal to improve the building. At the base of this yellow zone, for example, and around the green piers, we bring back a granite base so that we have a nice durable surface and it's historically appropriate. In the upper band of the yellow, where you see the stone that replaces the limestone, we're doing it in stucco. obviously for the same reason that I explained earlier. And then the piers help us to limit the amount of steps that are within the pink zones, which we're going to see shortly in the photographs. And then the central piers that are the taller ones that you will see in the photographs coming up, we do propose to put 2 digital signage screens to help the organization communicate what it does in the building as part of its programs. A larger version of this area, we focus on the right-hand side of the plan and elevation, which you saw. Since it is basically symmetrical, this way you can see the architectural features in the proposal in a very clear way. Top left, you see the existing condition and those steps that we were looking at in plan, and the railings that have been installed. The condition of the arch behind it, temporary signage that's been placed on the building, and you're going to see that what we've done is not only address the restoration components of the building, but then try to help them also identify in a more elegant way how their organization can kind of do its outreach visually. On the bottom left is that photograph from 1926, and you can see that originally the building did have these piers. They had urns and some stone detailing, as you can see, leading up to the top. Just behind the tree, there's actually a lamppost, which you may have noticed on the original photographs. We're obviously not coming here today to put back these piers in their identical manner, like I said, or the lampposts or the urns, but bringing back, again, some of the features that we can reintroduce so that the building does get a good portion of its elegance back. On the top, you see the elevation and plan of these steps, and of course, below the proposal of the elevation with the pier. We're also inspired by some of the existing motifs that the building has, so we're bringing those back, as you can see on the center of the bottom. And in plan, how the steps are being coated limited by putting a short knee wall that we will elegantly propose there as well, with lights that we can put in for the steps so that when people are coming in the evenings, they can see that. Focusing on the central portion, top, the blank wall with nothing there. Basically, you can see the band where we propose to sort of cut and bring back the pier that you see on the bottom left, so comparing the top to the bottom. And the digital signage that I mentioned, some of the architectural details, that is from the building itself. You can see in photograph on the center right. So we basically are taking those elements and those features and bringing them back and introducing them with the piers that you could see there. And that's at the building itself. There's some details about the steps that we're reconstructing along the passage, the walkways that we mentioned. And then once you are at the top of the that large landing that I mentioned earlier, you can see the existing condition. There's a step between those 2 square piers. And then once you get past them, right at the stairs, at the steps, there's another step at the doors. So basically, these are the 2 risers that we're looking to absorb with this ramp. As you can imagine, single steps, we all know, are the most hazardous types that you can have. And so we are looking to then prevent that from happening by having a proper ramp that allows for there to be a flat landing at the door and the threshold entering the building, and then very elegantly and simply sloping down between the piers and having handrails so that folks don't have to navigate these 2 steps. And with the new lighting that we're proposing, obviously this will be a more welcoming and safe feature for the building. Looking at the overall, bottom left, of course, the historic photograph, and next to that is the current condition. We also are looking to improve a few things. The archway where the gentleman is sitting on the steps on the bottom of the photograph, you can see the temporary signage. So we're proposing to then have aluminum painted signage in bronze finish so that we can place those in the archway, as you see in the right-hand photograph next to that, no longer needing these temporary white signs that they have been using to kind of get people in the neighborhood to know that they're there. Because frankly, as you can see from the architectural character of the building, you could walk past the sidewalk, and if you have no sense of the building being up above, you just wouldn't even know that Bronx Works was there. So this will allow for there to be signage symmetrically placed on either side at the arches, as you can see in the drawing, and then replacing that 1130 with something a little bit more appropriately scaled and their logo. So that would be above the door once you've actually reached that space. And at the top, you can see that in 41, there's still the residual words that were there from the children's facility that John mentioned historically. So we're looking to clean that up as part of that restoration that I mentioned earlier, and just put in elegant type the words community center so that it really speaks for what the building is doing now. All of those small interventions, we think, and the signage that we're showing we believe work in proportion with what the architectural proposal is to supplement that and provide them with the kind of wayfinding and signage that one would want to find hopefully on this building. Details on the recessed signage, again, components where the digital signage will be stored. And the last portion of this was the lighting. Once we were looking at restoring the building, we spoke with BronxWorks and said, you know, in a few spots, we can just do a little bit of supplemental lighting to more elegantly treat the facade, which currently is really not illuminated whatsoever. And so aside from the step lights at the base where you will see those there, we are proposing put a very small, in fact, the profile of these they're only 2.5 inches high. The world of LED has really made our architectural lighting so much easier to propose without feeling invasive. At the base of the columns, there's a proposal to uplight those columns there. And above on the balcony, on the ground, you would not see the light fixtures, also to illuminate the pediment and a pediment light. As you see, we've annotated these on the plan. You can see that there's only a few spots where that's happening within the area of the restoration. Now, my colleague will speak about the mechanical work.
Yeah, so the other portion of the project is providing a central HVAC system for the building. The vast majority of the spaces don't have any air conditioning and they rely on window AC units, which you may have seen in some of the photos throughout the building. So we're proposing to locate a new shaft on the back side of the building. You can see it in red on the right-hand plan. We've nestled it next to the chimney and it's partially within the 1950s addition. Up at the roof level, it will be at the exterior and you'll see how it comes out over to allow HVAC ductwork and piping systems to get from the lower floors of the building up to the roof. And then we do show these units here, which I'll just remind you that those and the dunnage have been approved at staff level separately because of their limited sight lines. So here's the front elevation from Grand Concourse. So you can see we're working up at the 5th floor roof level. So the new equipment is going next to that penthouse that's existing. This is looking from the back from the Carroll Place side. So below the 3rd floor, it's within the addition and it's only at the exterior from the 3rd up to 5th floor there. And you can see it shaded in red. Over on the image on the top right, that's the existing condition from standing on the play roof looking towards the original building. And so you can see we're basically placing the new shaft next to an existing chimney. Because of all the materials that are present there, we're continuing them. So the shaft will be clad in the brick to match, and we're continuing across the precast profile lines that you see. And you can see the height essentially matches the top of the chimney. So we're really trying to blend it in visually with the vertical mass that's already there. These are some sightline studies. So you can see from the Grand Concourse side, from the near sidewalk and the far sidewalk, we're fortunately able to set back the units enough that they're not visible from the street sight lines. And then similarly from the Carroll Place sight line, it's a much narrower street. And you can see we're not able to see the shaft or the units from there due to the addition. The one position where you are able to see the shaft is from the northeast corner of the building, so at Carroll Place and McClellan Street. And so you can see from that corner, basically at the entrance of their current parking lot, we've hatched in red where the new shaft will go, tucking it in behind the chimney as best as we can to kind of create one volume and have it blend in. Here's some closer up sections of the roof level. So you can see the sight lines from Grand Concourse on the top section, the chimneys back there shaded in pink. And then this is a section in the other direction looking from the Grand Concourse side back where you can see the units and ductwork. Here's an axonometric that gives you kind of a good sense of where the units, ductwork, and mechanical shaft all go. And then these are some technical sections and plans of the chimney construction. And I'll just end out with, these are some of the details. So we are doing a brick veneer. We're carrying the precast profile components across, and we're basically matching all of the visible materials to the existing building.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you so much. I just want to note for the record that Commissioner Ginsburg is recused from this item. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, if you can go back to your drawing, I guess, with the 706.
This one, Commissioner?
Oh, yeah. I'm looking at the lettering for 1130, which is on the upper portion, right? I mean, I think the difference with what you're proposing now is obviously that you intended for pedestrian or visitors to see from below. I'm wondering whether it's best to, since you have so many displays down here, to identify, whatever you need to put on the lower level rather than diminish the 1130, which is very distinctive and very easy for people to identify the building. As you know, people have trouble finding buildings and addresses of the street. So I'm wondering whether there's a better way to leave the 1130 as is, because it's highly legible and it's very nice font, and accommodate on what your other display is.
Sure. You're correct that 1130 obviously is very large and visible. We felt that bringing it scaled down and allowing for there to be a space for the name of the actual organization was going to work out. By having the Bronx Work identifiers in the arches, they're hopefully going to be very visible because they'll be right in front of you as you find the steps. And of course, the digital signage, we hope that will also have information. But I guess we can take into consideration potentially leaving that if that's the case. But we thought that between the name of the center, the digital signage, that would be able to collectively identify the building.
Very least,
Yes, I think, yes, yes, thank you very much. Understood. The scale might have been reduced too much, and we can work with staff to increase that typography a little bit more. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Mahan?
Hi there. Few questions. Are the in reference to the signage that we're just speaking about, are the doors and transom above it new or existing to remain?
Those are existing to remain, but the transom we would be replacing so that we could take away that 1130 and rework the signage that's proposed, but the doors are existing.
And what will be the material of the new transom then?
So we were going to have an aluminum backing, and the letters are also aluminum
Okay.
with a bronze finish, consistently having a bronze finish for all of the signage so that it all looks like it's singly done. Between the signage at the top of the building, the name at the bottom, and all the logos would be all in the same bronze finish.
Thank you. You noted that there is granite being brought back. Where is that?
Using the mouse here, the base of this portion
what,
here
too?
is all granite
And
from
where
that
is,
datum line down to the sidewalk.
thank you. And where's the stucco that you noted?
So from that same datum, everything above that will be in the stucco,
Okay.
but with the coursing implied, so that we bring the scale of that wall back to its original character.
Understood. I have one more question. Can you explain the purpose of the ramp, which is replacing two steps, but one still has to traverse nearly an entire floor's worth of steps before getting there? I
Yes,
didn't really understand that.
Sure. So, and as we acknowledged, obviously this is not solving the accessibility for the building, but what it does is it addresses the hazards that are present here in this local area, at the very least. Two steps that are single steps that are hard to see at night. So if you can imagine in the evening, that one step that's in the foreground between the columns, and then there's happens to be another one right at the door. And so in order to facilitate those two single steps, what we've done is in section, take that elevation of the ramp landing, bring it to the doors so that you have a proper flat surface that when you exit, if you're coming out with an older person or with your kids or whatever it is, that you have a level surface, not a step immediately, and then gradually simply descend down to that open space right in the front. So you also don't have that second sort of hidden step that you would maybe not notice right at the front edge of that. So we're essentially solving two potential hazards by by having a slope that just facilitates entering and exiting the building. You're correct. It's only at this location, but at least we've addressed these other hazards that are present.
Commissioner Wilder?
Thank you. Quick question, tied to the ramp. I'm trying to understand what typically happens, with circulation in that area. Because when you're adding the ramp, I guess the railings are kind of cutting off the sides, and then also in front where the ramp starts, that seems like it would be like a natural area for people to walk. So do you think that this will negatively impact the way circulation happens around this space?
As you asked your question, I was going to the slide that I would hope would help me answer you. So here we are obviously looking at the full plan of the entire stairs and landing system. But you could see I'm guiding you to the orange portion, of course, the two doors that swing out as you enter the building. The ramp would be composed of a portion that we think allows, and you could see that we've very consciously left the front of that landing and the bottom of the ramp to sort of align with what we see as a sort of natural rectangular surface. And so if you are walking up to the building, you still have all of that blue area that surrounds the orange ramp to stand, socialize, etc., and then you can enter the building. You would be able to also, if you wanted to, you could squeeze between the pier and the sidewalls, meaning we're not preventing you from cutting through here or through here as well, but we think that most people will just kind of enter through there, and this would be a open space here. Go ahead.
Yeah, the sides are dead ends basically, so it's underneath the upper stairs coming down. So the head height quickly goes down to only about 5 feet, and they're basically dead ends. There's a couple window AC units there. So it's actually a benefit to kind of guide people away from using those spaces since they're kind of a dark dead space. Not currently, and there is one light above the 1130, which you see, where we're going to replace that with a larger linear there, so we better illuminate the space, but basically both sides are dead ends.
And Commissioner, currently, if you were to walk under that portico, if you were to look to either side, you see the actual existing steps.
Any other questions? Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, question is about, okay, this is good, this elevation. There was a decision to change the entry steps at the sidewalk level on both sides. The original condition had the stairs splay out, as you can see in the lower left. You made a decision to just cut them straight in and not have it frontal only access. Can you explain why change that?
Sure. So in analyzing what we could potentially reintroduce, and as you see here, the idea was to bring back that rhythm that obviously has been removed. And we sort of, and it was a little bit of internal conversations to see if we were to put back the piers to the same scale size that they were originally, we would then be forced, they're larger, and we were concerned about the massing, but then we weren't going to be putting back the urns, and we weren't going to be putting back any lampposts, etc. We would have had these sort of large, heavy piers that we would have been discussing today with nothing sitting on them. So we thought that if we made a slight modification to the proportion of these to still recall the history of the building and do it in a way that would be subtle enough that only hopefully us having this conversation today would realize with the historic photo that we can elegantly reintroduce the piers and make them a slightly smaller, which is what you see in our proposal, where they still contain the steps, they still welcome you to come into the building, but because of their rectangular nature, and you can sort of see that in, apologies, let me just go to the plan. I'm going in the right direction, sorry. Yes, in plan, you can see that by staying shallower with these green features, we don't have this large horizontal surface like you saw in the original photograph, which would have been a flat surface that we would have had to deal with from a water management standpoint, but then it would have felt like we would have put back an empty element and feature to the building. So we found what we thought, and we come to you today with a proposal to reintroduce all of these, bring back the rhythm, bring back the elegance to the building, but do it in a way that's not quite exact to the replication of the original.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. If you're saying that the green piers that you're reintroducing at the bottom wall element, I can see they would be consistent with the pier widths at the second balcony level above, which I think make them feel consistent with it and not feel thinned up all of a sudden, and I think that works. My question was simply, could the steps that come beyond the green wall, um, yeah, as in the condition above, where the steps come in front of your thickened pier and just merge the two together, you would still achieve your wall element. There's something about the historic condition and its welcoming nature from the sidewalk that is pleasing, and I feel that it's a minor difference in terms of what you've shown, but I do think there's something there about how they really pull you in from three sides and not just straight forward. Anyways, that was the question. Another one I had is, you mentioned recessed screens for the digital elements. Did you mean recessed into the stucco, or did I mishear you?
No, that's correct. The two, and in this particular case, you can
Right.
see them, they're contrasted, the white to the green. They're actually recessed into the new piers so that the screens are actually flush with the stucco, and we don't have these sort of additive boxes that are being built on top of the stucco. We're able to set them in to the wall.
Okay. My only comment there is, again, just the long-term viability of that. It's, how we often do these digital monitors inside lobbies in sheetrock, and everyone always says, why did we do that? Because the screen just changed size immediately the next year. And I just wonder whether or not that's aesthetically, I understand what you're saying, but because they are in fact imitation or faux stone, it may also accentuate the faux nature because they're recessed, and that would never really happen in such a manner in a true stone.
Understood.
Okay.
Would you be concerned, you're saying about the maintenance and the viability in their life
The
cycle?
long term, I just would hate there to be then a new screen 5 or 10 years down the line that didn't quite fit right, or just didn't seem like a funny retrofit.
You're correct. Obviously, technology shifts while we're speaking,
Right.
but the cases are independent of the screen, so that the screen could be placed in there. Again, as long as you're pretty close, you can get one that would be replaced or if necessary. So the case and the screen are two independent components,
Right.
so that if there was a failure of technology, that screen could be replaced within the same case.
But the case is recessed and fixed
That's
into
correct.
the stucco.
Within the stucco pier, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that covers my questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Go back to the.
The full building, Commissioner?
Decorative element. One that you missed. Getting rid of those really. I would make it too much.
So Commissioner, we just don't have them. They're not there. Yes, to answer your question, it is the latter. In fact, we're already pushing the envelope seriously on what the available funds are for this. John could attest to that. As you can see, we did limit our work. In fact, the slide that I have here, we tried to contain our proposal with BronxWorks, trying to do our responsible diligence by saying, okay, we can focus on that central area. We're actually not doing any work laterally on any of the repointing or any of the windows, et cetera, so that we could focus on the pieces that are most in need of this assistance. And when we were faced with this challenge, in fact, honestly, BronxWorks actually didn't think they were going to spend any of their funds on the base of the building, because we were the ones that proposed to them that if we're restoring the facade, and we started that, and I remember when we first mentioned it to John and Eileen, who are the lady clients on the board, the base of the building was actually beyond what we originally had intended to do, because the focus was on the pediment and other restoration work. And in fact, they embraced the idea of us improving the building by at least bringing back all of the features that we've discussed today, which were really not even originally part of the scope. So, Commissioner, I wish we did have the money to put back the lampposts, and we would have probably very excitedly been showing you some versions of them today.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, let's move to public testimony. I'm going to note that there's nobody in the room to speak on this item. So I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Intergovernmental and Community Affairs, Stephen Thompson, to see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. Right, seeing none, I'll note for the record that Bronx Community Board 4 recommends approval.
Okay, Commissioners, if you don't have any final questions, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Chu, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Wilder, would you second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start this discussion?
Building's a very, very interesting building. It's part of a cluster on the concourse of public buildings that create a kind of a little interesting enclave that breaks the uniformity of the concourse at this location, and it's a very important building in that regard. Strange building. It's got a very full facade, and I think that the proposed work is mostly restorative in nature, and I think it'll be a walking experience along this part of the concourse, drawing people to look up at this very attractive building and hopefully attracting more tenants so the upper floors can be occupied as well. I think it's, generally speaking, I have no concerns about the proposal specifics. I think that the creation of the piers, the recreation of the piers in stucco with granite base or I'm sorry, the piers are precast, but the infill stucco, I think is fine. I think we approve stucco in lieu of stone on pretty much every brownstone in New York City. So I think here, as long as the staff works with the applicant so that it is treated in a similar way, points, etc., I think it can be a fine, appropriate substitute given the constraints of budget that we talked about. I think the signage is reasonably modest, and it's a general improvement over the quote-unquote temporary signage that's been there for very much. I think that the introduction of the ramp is not inappropriate because you really want people telling a little bit. It is unfortunate that the building is not more ADA accessible. Again, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with BronxWorks. The mission work is so important to our city now more than ever. I think that their association with this building. Very important.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
I'm in agreement for Commissioner Goldblum. I think that the ramp in the center door is important, even though because that single step is dark. When the visibility is low, I think it will help prevent accidents. I think that it's unfortunate, correct, that this building is not more ADA accessible, but I think, and then also with the limited budget, I can tell by the tone of the applicant's voice. I think that I will follow Commissioner Goldblum's suggestion about having them work closely with the staff in regard to the stucco.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
Thank you for the presentation and the important work that the owner undertakes. That being said, I personally had some difficulty following the decision-making logic in this project. We frequently, and I'd be happy to, approve sort of quote unquote restoration projects that deviate from pure restoration, but sort of the lack of a, I don't know, philosophical overarching approach for me made it quite difficult to follow why, stairs were restored almost, but not quite. Piers were almost, but not quite. Doors, ramps, materials, on and on, the sort of, decision-making logic about whether something is restored or not restored or almost restored seem to vary at every turn. So I find the outcome to be quite piecemeal, and I understand the significant budget constraints and certainly appreciate that. I personally think, something a bit more, sort of internally cohesive can still be arrived at even with budget constraints. As to a few of the specifics, I personally don't understand the need for the ramp whatsoever. If there's a concern about a single step, although that is legal, certainly there's a concern and an illegality about having no landing, although there's no drawing indicating where that step is. I couldn't quite follow. I think you could just make 2 steps out at the line of the columns instead of 1, and then 1 a few later. If there's a concern about darkness, I mean, there seems to be a significant investment in decorative lighting at the building, but not in, sort of safety lighting at that step, for example. Very significant things like the roll down gate or the doors themselves, were sort of left on the table, which if this is being positioned as a restoration, might, in my view, rise to a higher degree of priority. Choices about materials I found sort of odd as well. So I had a hard time with this proposal and would need to see sort of greater clarity and rationale and sort of the whole picture to find it appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilder?
Yeah, overall, I can find the project appropriate. I think Commissioner Mahan made some good points. I also understand the challenges of these types of projects with there being so many things to do, and we may not know all of the various things you guys are juggling and trying to address. So I get it. I think there was a good point about the signage above the 1130. I would think that could stay. I didn't see a good a good reason why it needed to be changed. I do understand that adding the addition of, or adding the signage of Bronx Works to that area, but it's also in other areas. So I think if you were going to keep something, I think that would be a good thing to keep. I do have some challenges with the ramp. It's doing what a ramp does, which is taking up a lot of real estate and really changing that area. Um, and I obviously know what it's for, but also it's not an accessible space anyway. And I do think it creates more challenges than it solves. With some of the things that have been mentioned, there could be, like was mentioned, adding the step to the front, or that line is, to kind of solve the one-step issue, if that's the real concern. And then my other concern would be stucco, which will always be a concern. I would hope that you guys could explore other alternative materials in those areas where you guys are adding stucco. But overall, I think it's appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I do think this is a very interesting project. It is a unique building, and I think that the applicant has really done a good job trying to achieve many different improvements in this facade with clearly a limited budget. I appreciate the clarity of the presentation and the drawings. I understand what's being proposed here. I think for the most part, I feel comfortable with what's being proposed. The two items that I do question, and I would like the applicant to consider, is the first is the steps at the sidewalk. I do feel that that is one element that departs from the original condition, and if I look at the plan, it does in a bit counter the existing moves of the curved planters on either side of these stoops to create these sort of trapped areas. I think those are elements that never existed there. It was really a planar parallel experience with a spill at the bottom. It's a minor thing, and I don't know if my other commissioners haven't mentioned it, but I do think that it is a nuance that speaks to welcoming and the nature that the institution really wants to portray. It's interesting hearing some of the comments about the ramp, my previous commissioners. I think in general, I can see the improvement attempted here. You don't really see it from the sidewalk, but I do wonder whether or not just a two-step sort of construction to the front door would have been a more minimal, as Commissioner Van had proposed, a more minimal intervention that really doesn't change the experience because there are stairs leading all the way up to that point, and giving it a little more lighting might be sufficient and be less costly, because it looks like this version may incur demoing that slab to get the proper elevation as opposed to just an overbuild of a step. Those are my comments. I think the rest of this looks fine to me, the signage, the minimal approach. I'm okay with the rest of the proposal. I just think the base needs some work at the walls and the detailing. They seem a little too simplistic, and I think that can be done at a staff level.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
Restoration.
Okay, I think we can come to an action today, a motion today. I think what, it looks like we don't have enough votes on the ramp. So perhaps we go for the two-step option. And then I think if the commissioners are okay, maybe we can discuss the stucco versus stone details with staff, the ratio. Also, have the staff consider options for the splayed steps at the sidewalk, and then refine the details of the, I think looking at the signage, the 1130, the size and all that. Thank you.
Regarding 1130 Grand Concourse in the Grand Concourse Historic District, the application is to alter the facade and stairs, install signage, and construct a rear yard mechanical addition. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Grand Concourse Historic District, and I recommend approval with modifications. Finding that the work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features of the Grand Concourse facade to a condition more in keeping with its original appearance, including the restoration of piers and reorientation of steps to better recall the placement, dimensions, profiles, and details of the original stone stairways. That the proposed resurfacing mortar stone copings granite base will match the color, texture, finish, and bond pattern of the original stone. That the proposed installation of a ramp at the second-story entrance that the proposed signage consisting of non-illuminated pin-mounted letters for building identification and illuminated inside LED sign boxes for programmatic information will be in keeping with the variety of signs traditionally found at larger institutional buildings, including at this one. That the proposed signage will be well scaled to the entry piers and walls and will remain a secondary presence to the highly ornamental features of the facade, and that will not overwhelm the building. That the proposed masonry-clad HVAC shaft at the rear facade, which will be partially visible at an oblique angle from McClellan Street, will be placed adjacent to an existing masonry chimney clad with brick to match an adjacent wall, and will screen. That the work will enhance and support the continued use of the building as a community center and will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the Grand Concourse Historic District. However, I recommend that the applicant work with staff on a number of issues, including the balance between stucco and stone to be used on the base, the specific design of the lowest tier of stairs as they relate to the sidewalk and the side planters, identification signage, and also that the small ramp at the top of the be replaced with two steps instead of the ramp.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Nay.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, did you say nay? Nay. Commissioner Wilder.
Yes.
Okay, with 6 in favor and 1 opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you. That's been approved with modifications. Please continue to work with staff.
All right, we'll now move to the next item, public hearing item number 2, LPC 26-04038, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 324, Lot 55, 362 Clinton Street in the Cobble Hill Historic District. This is an Italianate-style row house built in 1843, and the application is to construct a rear yard addition.
We're just going to hold off for a little bit while we work on some technical difficulties.
Testing, testing. How's that? Is that better?
Hello?
Testing.
Testing. Can you hear?
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, testing, hello, hello.
Testing.
Okay, the applicant may begin. Please begin, yes.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Frankel. I'm the architect and applicant. I'd like to thank Dina Posner and Bernadette Artis, models of public service. Am I bringing up my presentation? Oh, okay, okay. That's right. Shall I go ahead? "362 Clinton Street, located in the Cobble Hill Historic District, established 1969, was built in 1843 in the Italianate style. Under this application, no work is proposed for the front facade. Last year, Landmarks issued a permit for minor work for front facade window replacement. The work proposed under this application is exclusively for new rear yard extensions. These are existing condition photos. The two-story rear yard extension that once existed at our property is long gone, as shown in the photo on the left. Our existing four-story building is hemmed between its neighbors, set back 9.5 feet from adjacent four-story 360 and 15.5 feet from adjacent 364's four-story L. 360's one-story extension, which you can see in the top photo on the right, is 12 feet deep. 364, in addition to its four-story L, has next to it a Landmarks-approved two-story L. Regarding our adjacent neighbor to the left, our proposed two-story extension aligns with its one-story extension, and our proposed four-story extension aligns with its upper floors. At the adjacent four-story L on the right, our proposed two-story extension extends 6 feet in front of it, and our proposed four-story extension sets back 6 feet from it. This is the existing section, and on the right is the L of 364 projecting beyond. This is our proposed section, still with 364's L projecting beyond. And to the far right is a detail of the proposed wood and glass infill at the lower two-story extension parlor level. Existing and proposed cellar, no change to footprint. Existing and proposed basement floor plans. The existing building is 36 feet 4 inches deep and 25 feet wide. It's a rather stout little row house. On the right, our proposed two-story extension aligns with adjacent 360's one-story extension, and on the left, our proposed two-story extension projects 6 feet beyond 360's four-story L. 364's four-story L. Existing and proposed parlor level floor plans, same footprints as I just described for the basement. Existing and proposed second floor plans. The proposed four-story extension aligns with adjacent 360's full-height extension and is set back 6 feet from adjacent 364's full-height L. Where our four-story building was once hemmed between its neighbors, it now aligns with the one on the right, yet remains hemmed behind the one to the left. Existing and proposed third floor plans, same as the floor below, as just shown. And existing and proposed roof plans. No work proposed for the roof. Now for context, precedent, and visibility. Fire insurance maps from the late 19th and early 20th century show the persistence and precedence of several large rear yard extensions in the block, and that as early as 1886, the unity of our row's rear facades ceased to exist. Of the 49 row houses within the block that are similar to 362, 33 of them, the majority, have rear yard extensions. To reiterate, our proposed four-story extension aligns with adjacent 360's full-height extension and is set back 6 feet from adjacent 364's full-height L. At the upper floors, our building will align with one neighbor but remain set back from the other. Our proposed lower two-story extension aligns with 360's one-story extension and projects in front of 364's full-height L. Several of the historic extensions in the block extend deeper into their rear yards than our proposed two-story extension would in ours. Our proposed extension leaves an ample rear yard, and because any continuity of the row ceased to exist long ago, and the context is varied, our proposal does not disrupt the historic fabric. Our proposal is only minimally visible from DeGraw, and therefore the public's experience is not changed. On the left is the view from DeGraw in 1969 at the time of designation. On the right is the same view today, with a photo montage of the proposed four-story full-height extension along with a zoomed-in, not actual view. The proposed two-story extension is not visible from this view. At the time of designation, 360's full-height extension, 364's full-height L, and 366 and 368's three-story extensions had long been built, and any unity along the row's rear facades had not been preserved and was long gone. Our building has been hemmed in for over half a century, and our proposed full-height extension, while aligning with 360, will remain hemmed behind 364. Our proposal is minimally visible, and because it uses historic materials, massing, and fenestration, does not change the experience nor detract from the character of the block. This photo is taken from the same view with foliage, showing visibility of the four-story mock-up, tucked behind 364. On the lower right-hand side is a zoomed-in, not actual view. Please note that each subsequent slide with views from DeGraw will include zoomed-in views. Please remember that they are not actual views, they are zoomed in. This photo is taken from the same view without foliage, showing visibility of the four-story mock-up. This photo is taken a few steps east along DeGraw with foliage. From this view, there is no visibility of the proposed four-story extension. Visibility is only of the guardrail of the proposed two-story extension. This photo is taken from the same view without foliage. From this view too, there's no visibility of the proposed four-story extension. There is some visibility of the proposed two-story brick extension and its terrace guardrail and stair leading to the rear yard. This is a view of the mock-up from the rear yard. This slide juxtaposes the view of the four-story mock-up on the left with a photo montage on the right, all with foliage. This slide juxtaposes the view of the four-story mock-up on the left with a photo montage on the right, all without foliage. This slide juxtaposes the view of the two-story mock-up on the left with a photo montage on the right, all with foliage. Visibility is limited to the terrace guardrail. This slide juxtaposes the mock-up of the extensions. This story juxtaposes the view of the two-story mock-up on the left with a photo montage on the right, all without foliage. The prior one was with foliage. Pardon me if I got a bit confused. And this slide juxtaposes the mock-up of the extensions with the photo montage viewed from the rear yard. In summation, our proposed full-height extension will align with 360 and remain hemmed behind 364. Visibility from DeGraw of the proposed four-story extension is minimal, limited to a span of roughly 15 feet. Visibility of the two-story extension is for a span of roughly 25 feet and only during months without foliage. The visibility of our proposal does not disrupt the continuity of the row, nor does it introduce unprecedented acontextual massing. Our proposal does not change the experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay. Let's see if there's anybody in the room who would like to testify on this item. No. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Thompson for remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. Once your name is called, you'll be promoted to panelist, after which we ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. The first speaker will be Manor Fatima.
Good morning, commissioners, and Happy New Year. My name is Manur Fatima, and I am speaking on behalf of HDC. HDC recognizes that the addition is working in tandem with the neighboring extensions on both the right and the left. However, we are concerned about the proposed extension of the upper two floors and the lower two floors that go past the adjacent building and looms into the donut. We believe that the massing should respect historic context, and the current designs and materials are inconsistent with the row and will be seen from the streetscape. We recommend retaining intact upper floors and reconsidering the proposed finishes for greater compatibility with the surroundings. Additionally, the detailing of the infilled T-porch and the oversized sidewalls are not well proportioned or detailed. The applicant should work with LPC staff to refine these elements and reduce the bulk of the garden and the parlor floor. Thank you.
The next speaker is Christina Conroy.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. Now founded in New York City in 1966, the Victorian Society in America is dedicated to fostering the appreciation and preservation of our 19th and early 20th century heritage. The New York chapter promotes preservation of our historic districts, individual and scenic landmarks, interior and civic art. We find this applicant's proposal to remove the entire facade at 362 Clinton Street and build an addition rising the full height of the building unacceptable. It would destroy significant historic material. It would eliminate any sense of the original mass of the building, and the lower two floors would have twice the mass of the largest existing rear extension in this row, the one-story extension next door at 360 Clinton. The photo of the mock-up on board A 122.00 gives an accurate idea of just how large this addition would be. We urge the Commission to instruct the applicant to conform to the LPC guidelines for rear yard additions, and these include requirements that, quote, the depth and height of the proposed addition is not deeper than the predominant depth or taller than the predominant height of the additions or Ls of buildings of a similar type, and in no event shall the proposed addition rise to the full height of the rear facade. The lower three floors of the addition should align with the predominant depth of the side walls at 360 and 364 Clinton, not the furthest extension. The top floor at 362 should be left intact. Thank you, Commissioners.
Anyone else joining via Zoom who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. Being none, I'll note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 6 recommends approval.
Okay. Would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments?
Yes, thank you. So the Victoria Society, if I heard her properly, 2 points I'd like to suggest correction. One is our proposed extension at the lower 2 floors is not bigger than others that exist. We saw that in one of my slides. And I think she was quoting from the rules. And the reason we're here is because we don't fall into the rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Ginsburg?
Can you address the fact that we typically want the top floor of an existing rear facade to remain? Is the only reason you're pushing it out because you want more space, or is there any other reason for it?
The row house is only 36 feet deep, 25 feet wide, 36 feet deep. And we would like to capture more of our development rights. We'd like to make this bigger. I mean, as you know, it's expensive property. It's not very big to begin with, and we'd like to make it bigger. And we don't feel that we're destroying a significant architectural element, and we don't think the experience has changed from DeGraw. In fact, we're mostly tucked behind 364s, deeply projecting 4-story L.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Commissioner Goldblum?
I missed this, but is the stucco, the stucco addition was not approved by the commissioner, was it? It was not.
Yes, it was.
You're talking about the L addition is a
Full depth
redesignation.
one that we're seeing in the photos.
Yes,
here.
but because it had been stucco, it was allowed to be, the LPC permitted restuccoing it.
Thank you.
Its massing was existing at time
Yes,
of
yes.
designation.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Mayen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Chen, would you second?
Second.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this discussion?
Okay. So this is an unusual site because this building is surrounded by the 2 buildings that are atypical for the block. But with that said, I would say that the 4th floor of the existing facade should remain. That has been our typical standard to try and maintain some uniformity with the block, even if the adjacent buildings. And I might look at pulling back the 2-story addition because right now it's in aligning with a 1-story L, but I'll be curious what my fellow commissioners say because I could go either way on that.
Thank you.
And I just add, and besides that, I think the facade is fine.
Thank you. Commissioner Mayen?
I concur with Commissioner Ginsburg that the top floor should be retained as is, and the lower two floors should be reduced depth to extend no further than the neighboring L.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen,
I'm in agreement.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Jefferson,
in agreement.
and Commissioner Chu,
As well.
and Commissioner Wilder.
Same.
Okay. So let's go ahead and read the motion.
Right. With regards to LPC 26-04038, 362 Clinton Street, Cobble Hill Historic District, an Italianate-style row house built in 1843, application is to construct a rear yard addition. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Cobble Hill Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed rear yard addition will only be visible from public thoroughfares and limited views at distance and within the context of secondary facades, including neighboring rear extensions. That the upper portion of the proposed addition will be within a row featuring existing 3- and 4-story rear extensions and will not extend further into the rear yard than the neighboring rear extensions. That the stepped massing of the addition will be simple in form in keeping with the massing of the neighboring rear extensions. That the red brick cladding, punched openings, and row lock headers of the upper portion of the proposed addition matching aspects of the building's rear facade and will harmonize with the building and neighboring properties. That the lower portion of the proposed addition featuring large windows, black painted wood cladding, brick piers, and metal roof guardrail will be consistent with 1- and 2-story rear extensions and enclosed porches commonly found at row houses of this age in terms of basic composition and material finish palette. And that the simple design, scale of openings and articulations infill will be compatible with the residential character of the secondary facade of this building. However, I find that the top floor of the rear facade is not altered or in a deteriorated condition, and except for the neighboring houses, one of which has a partial width L and retains some of the top floor, the majority of the houses in the row maintain the top floor in their entirety. That the construction of a full-height rear yard addition will eliminate a sense of building's original massing and scale, and that the lower portion of the proposed addition will extend further into the rear yard than the majority of the neighboring rear yard extensions, including one to the immediate neighboring extension, thereby diminishing the sense of openness within the central green space. Therefore, I recommend working with staff that the top floor of the rear facade be retained and the rear yard addition be reduced by a story, and the projection of the lower 2 floors of the rear yard addition be reduced to extend no further than the neighboring rear L at 364.
Thank you. Commissioner Mayen, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
With 8 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you. That's been approved with modifications. Please continue to work with staff. Let's move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 3, LPC 25-11523, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 1207, Lot 61, 1219 Dean Street in the Crown Heights North Historic District. This is a Romanesque Revival-style row house with Renaissance Revival-style details designed by Albert E. White and built circa 1891. The application is to legalize replacement of stained glass window transoms without LPC permits.
Do something again.
Good morning. My name is James Schaefer. I am representing the owner of 1219 Dean, part of the Crown Heights North Historical District, designated in 2007 a Romanesque revival built in 1891, designed by Albert White, part of a pretty intact row of houses by the same architect and developer. I know you have a busy schedule where our ask is pretty small. We're basically talking about 3 transom windows, so I'll get down to that. These are shots of the neighboring buildings with ours in the circle. The tax photo and the designation photo. The only picture we could find of the transoms in question is there down at the bottom. The owner of the building purchased it in 2024. It was designated in 2007 when these windows were all relatively historically accurate or not yet replaced by aluminum replacement windows. So you can see that all the stained glass transoms were there when the owner purchased the building. All of the stained glass transoms had been removed, and the windows had all been replaced with aluminum replacement windows. The transom panels for the parlor floor were found on site, and they were reinstalled. But the transoms for the second floor were gone. So the violations were issued, but they were gone sometime between 2007 and 2024. So what we're asking is whether or not we can replace these transoms with clear glass or whether we have to go to stained glass. And these are close-ups showing the windows. On the block, there are many buildings with transoms. Some have the stained glass. A lot of them have clear panes. However, a lot of them look to be not historically accurate. I think these are windows that were replaced and have not yet been upgraded and filed. So there's a quick detail of what it looks like. But as you can see, it's just a fixed transom. It's not operable. Or they are not operable. There are 3, and that's where we are. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay. Is there any, let's move to public testimony. Is there anybody in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Thompson for remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. After you're promoted to panelist, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. We ask you to unmute yourself. The first speaker will be Manor Fatima.
My name is Manur Fatima, and I'm speaking on behalf of HDC. HDC finds this application to be inappropriate. Stained glass windows are a rare and wonderful feature of brownstone row houses, and the applicant must look into replacing the glass in kind. Thank you.
The next speaker will be Christina Conroy.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society. Now, the Victorian Society urges denial of this proposed legalization in the strongest possible terms. Stained glass windows are a very typical feature of Romanesque revival houses. Architect Albert E. White included them in the design of several of the houses he designed in the Crown Heights North. And the ones removed from 1219 Dean Street are specifically mentioned in the designation report. If the windows were removed and not retrievable, there are many stained glass studios in New York City which would be able to recreate them. The if energy conservation is a concern, at these very small windows, interior storms would be a perfectly appropriate solution. Thank you, Commissioners.
Anyone else joining via Zoom who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 8 also recommends denial, citing the stained glass.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to respond to the comments?
The only response I have is that it was a decision based on time and expense. Since the owner did install the transoms on the parlor floor, it wasn't an aesthetic choice and it's not an energy choice. It was just for time and expense.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Goldblum, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that?
No second.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Wilder, would you like to start this discussion?
Actually, if
Oh,
you don't
wait.
mind, I'd like to just want to note one thing. There is a degree of flexibility inherent in the staff rules, specifically for stained glass transoms. They are recognized as special windows per the definition in the rules. However, for buildings that lost their stained glass windows prior to designation, the staff rules actually have an option for owners to put in either clear glass or stained glass, kind of recognizing, it is more of a difficulty and a challenge to locate exact matches or approximate matches for stained glass in other places. And also because they're more secondary as transoms to, the overall window itself and in many cases the facade itself. So that's not exactly what happened here. A prior owner removed the second floor transoms. But nonetheless, I'm just kind of pointing out that there is some flexibility even for the staff when stained glass is missing at time of designation.
So Corey, what you're saying is, so why are we seeing this?
In this case, it's because these stained glass transoms did exist at time of designation.
Okay.
So this current owner didn't remove them, a prior one did. This owner put back the ones they found
Right.
at the parlor level, but that didn't happen at the floor. So that's why you're seeing it.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes, thanks for the presentation. I think it's a good thing that the stained windows at the parlor floor were able to be reinstalled. Unfortunate for the second floor that they were not found. I think I would definitely prefer the stained glass over the clear, but I can still find it appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
Hopefully I didn't just disconnect me. I guess not. I can agree with Commissioner Wilder.
Thank you. Commissioner Mayen?
Looks good. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Same here.
Commissioner Goldblum?
Agreed.
Commissioner Jefferson? And Commissioner Chu? Okay. Would you like to read the motion?
In a matter of LPC 25-11-523, 1219 Dean Street, Crown Heights North Historic District, a Romanesque revival style row house with Renaissance revival style details designed by Albert E. White and built circa 1891. Application is to legalize replacement of stained glass windows without Landmarks Preservation Commission permits. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Crown Heights North Historic District. I further note that the stained glass was removed by a prior building owner. I recommend approval, finding that the stained glass transoms that were removed from the second floor were not unique or representative of fine craftsmanship, that the historic stained glass transoms were restored and reinstalled at the parlor floor, thereby maintaining the presence of stained glass transoms at this facade, which is a unifying feature of the row, that there are a variety of facade treatments and fenestration patterns throughout the row, and there is no matching building in the row. Therefore, the presence of clear glass transoms instead of stained glass at the second floor will not call undue attention to itself, and that the replacement transom windows match the original windows in terms of operation details and finish and do not preclude the future installation of stained glass. and that the work has not diminished the special character or historic character of the building, the row, or the historic district.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen, Commissioner Chu.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson. Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
With 8 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
That's been approved. Thank you. Let's move to the next item.
All right, next item is public hearing item number 4, LPC 26-04636, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 1157, Lot 32, 628 Carlton Avenue in the Prospect Heights Historic District. This is an Anglo-Italianate style row house designed by William Flanagan and built in 1871. The application is to construct a bay window and a rooftop addition.
Good morning, everyone. This project is at 628 Carlton Avenue. It's an Anglo-Italianate building built in 1871, designed by William Flanagan as a part of a row of 7 houses. 628 is the end property and the only property that has an attached garage. The facade, stoop, and metalwork remains well preserved today. And as part of the renovation, we'll be replacing the front facade 1/1 windows and the garage door, which we're working with staff level to do. Here's a view of the front facades along Carlton Avenue, 616 through 628. They were developed together. Approximately 30 years later, 632 Carlton, which you could see on the left of the single-story garage, was built, and it differs in scale and style from the brownstone row houses. It sits proud of their street line as well. And finally, you could see 634 Carlton Avenue, which is a small carriage house at the edge of the designated historic district. This is an overview of our block with the historic district boundary outlined. As you can see, it's a triangular block formed by the diagonal intersection of Flatbush Avenue with Carlton Avenue and Prospect Place. As seen from Prospect Place, 628 Carlton is the last in the row before the nature and scale of the block changes. The rear property line of this property runs parallel to Flatbush, and the view into the donut is compromised by unprotected rear facades on Flatbush and taller structures at the corner. You can also see there are many taller buildings at the intersection of Flatbush, Carlton, and Park Place, which are 4 and 5 stories tall and have varying mansard roof conditions. The juxtaposition of this end property to those buildings make this a unique property in its context. This is the same view via Google Earth. There you go. Via Google Earth, where you can see the triangular donut, taller buildings at the end of Carlton, and the rear facades of the buildings along Flatbush, which is outside of the district. These are street view images for context, which show the varying scales of the buildings and the surrounding property. The upper row is 632, 634, and 636, which are immediately to the left of the property. On the bottom left, you could see 643 and 645 on Carlton, which is across the street and starts to also break the height mold. And then you see a few properties along Park Place, 167 and 169, that also have some varying heights. So this project is a full renovation of the home, and today we're presenting 2 items to be reviewed: a 1-story addition, which will house a bedroom, bathroom, and recreation room for this family of 5. It is set back from the front and rear facades to maintain the cornice lines, and we're also proposing a bay window at the side facade over the garage. In the next few slides, we'll show you a series of renderings and the mock-up of the vertical addition and its visibility. For reference, the highlighted yellow dots views are the only places where the addition can be seen within the cone of vision. So this first view, which is view A, as you can see, the addition cannot be seen. Here you can see it minimally, the addition from the left side of the building. But also because we're increasing the wall height along that side facade, its visibility is limited. In views C and D, which is coming up next, we can see it visible from the side, and you can start to see the bay window We believe this side visibility is pretty consistent with some end buildings that you would typically see in historic districts. And in view E, from immediately in front of the building, you can't see the upper floor addition, but you do see a little peek of the bay window over the garage. Excuse me. From the rear, there are two vantage points where it can be seen, which we're going to walk you through. Those are G and H, but for starters, this is view F, where the mock-up cannot be seen. And then these next two views are the only two views in that cone of vision from Prospect Place, where you can see the rear, where you could see, excuse me, the addition. And these are views G and H. So this is view G. And here at view H, you can also see that there's some pretty strong foliage that does hinder the visibility of the addition. We found two instances of precedent for vertical additions with similar rear visibility along Carlton. Both projects gained approval around 2018. In this overhead view, you can see 546 Carlton, which had both a vertical and horizontal visible rear addition, and 552 Carlton, whose top floor addition included mansard detailing and chimney extensions. That addition is not set back from the rear facade. And these are some street views today of those additions from Bergen Street. These additions are clearly visible and are also located mid-block in their row of townhouses. This is a close-up view of the vertical addition from the rear, really a bird view, so you can't see it from this perspective from the street, but wanted to give you a little more detail on the addition. As you can see, it's set back from the cornice line to maintain the architectural continuity of the row houses. In the bird's eye view, you can also see how, since the addition is at the end of the row, it starts to relate to the triangular corner, including the apartment building to its south at 632 Carlton. The materials chosen are meant to blend with the sky and are typically seen in similar additions. We're proposing a metal standing seam material on the rear facade in a gray color, a stucco at the side to match that color. We also would like to paint the existing brick facade, which currently has been parged with cementitious finish. And we want to paint it a brick color so that it comes back to its original intention. This is a blow-up section of the addition. You can see it's set back from the front and rear. Also, the rear facade is angled, not only as a nod to mansard detailing, but also to further minimize its visibility from the rear. These are some elevation drawings of the rear facade with the addition, and a rendering and a side-by-side with the existing rear facade. For the front of the addition, we'll continue the same gray stucco color with black windows. You'll start to see the exposed side facade where we're planning to paint the brick the same color as the rear to unify the brick throughout. And you can also, if you just go back one more, sorry, you can also just, hold on, we can't go back now. Is there any way to go back? On the keyboard. Thanks. Okay, and you can also start to see the bay window in the rendering as well. This is a front facade drawing. Okay, so this is the side facade with the new bay window. And you can see the addition at the top, which will be clad in brick on this side, and to create a stepped wall, which you typically see in historic buildings on corners. This is a drawing of the side facade. Here you can see the parapet wall as well, and just gives you an overview of the architectural details. These are drawings of the new bay window. The bay is proposed to be 10 feet wide by 21 feet tall to cover 2 stories of the building. We aim to create details that mimic historic bay windows in the neighborhood, and we'll install 2/2 windows to give the bay a contextual feel. And we've also included next some contextual photos in the area along Prospect Place, Carlton, St. Mark's Avenue that have some historic bay windows. We also wanted to include quickly, even though this isn't in our historic district, the top photos are an example of new construction in the Cobble Hill district, with also a close-up of a two-story bay that we think was, done well and giving a nod to the historic corner buildings. The bottom row has some other examples of approved projects. On the left is also a bay window that was approved. And the right is a covered porch approved at Cambridge Place. That concludes our presentation. Sorry if I went a little fast, but please let me know if you want me to go back to any slides. Thank you for
No,
your time.
that was great. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Ginsburg?
When you say painting the rear facade, are the mortar joints going to be painted the same color as the brick, or will they be different?
Be painted the same color because currently there is a cementitious.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Let's move on to public testimony. We do have somebody signed up. So Patty Hagan, if you could please come to the podium and just state your name, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Patty Hagan from the Prospect Heights Neighborhood Development Council. The Prospect Heights Neighborhood Development Council, PHNDC, hereby presents testimony about the Certificate of Appropriateness application for 628 Carlton Avenue, one in a row of Anglo-Italianate style row houses designed by William Flanagan and built in 1871. The application is to add a rooftop addition as well as make alterations to the north facade of the building, including 2 punched windows at the 2nd and 3rd floors, a 2-story bay window at the parlor and 2nd floor with windows on 3 sides and a doorway at the parlor floor. The proposed addition of the punched windows, a 2-story bay window, and a door are new to this building and will be visible from some angles on Carlton Avenue. However, they are architecturally and historically consistent with other similar windows and bays on other nearby buildings in the Prospect Heights Historic District. The replacement of the garage is likewise contextual in the district. As such, we do not object to these changes. The rooftop addition will be full building width, 30 feet deep and 10 feet, 6.5 inches high, with a fire access ladder to the roof. It will be set back 11 feet, 11 inches from the cornice and 2 feet, 4 inches from the rear facade. The south facade of the addition will be stucco painted gray, and the north facade will be brick painted to match that facade of the building. The front facade of the addition will be stucco painted gray with large windows, and the rear facade will be gray standing seam metal roofing with 3 punched windows to align with the windows on the 2nd and 3rd floors of the building. A brick wall painted to match the north facade will fill the space between the cornice and the addition sidewalk. The rooftop addition will be somewhat visible from locations along Carlton Avenue. However, it will be very visible through an opening on Prospect Place between Carlton Avenue and Flatbush Avenue. PHNDC is concerned that there seems to be a significant increase in applications to build rooftop additions in the Prospect Heights Historic District that have been approved by the Landmarks Preservation Commission based on precedents existing on neighboring buildings. We are therefore especially concerned that should this
You're past
application...
3 minutes, if you don't mind concluding. Thank you.
Okay. we don't want the rooftop. We therefore request that the commission disapprove the rooftop addition as it is presently proposed. Thank you for your consideration, and this is from Danae Oratowski.
Thank you, Patty. Is there anybody else in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Thompson for remote testimony.
Those on Zoom who wish to speak, please raise your hand. The first speaker will be Christina Conroy.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. The Victorian Society is happy to support the work being proposed at 628 Carlton Avenue. This work includes the removal of several inappropriate modern elements visible from the street, notably the garage door and the sloped roof and fence above this door. These proposed replacements are stylistically appropriate and more harmonious with the buildings and the district. The creation of new window openings on the secondary south facade alley facade will require removal of only a small amount of plain historic masonry. The new punched window openings, two-story bay and black finish double-hung sash proposed for this minimally invisible facade will resemble historic windows in terms of size, scale, placement, details, and design. A new painted finish and windows, the new painted finish and windows will not draw significant attention away from the architectural features of the primary facade. They will add some visual interest to the blank side wall in a way that sometimes seen historically on secondary walls. And the proposed rooftop addition will be set back from the primary facade in a position where it will not overwhelm the historic structure or its neighbors on the block. Thank you, Commissioners.
Next speaker is Manor Fatima.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Manur Fatima, speaking on behalf of HDC. HDC supports the proposed bay window and rooftop addition due to its careful restoration and appropriate detail work. The design of the side bay is minimally visible, respectful to the historic streetscape, and enhances the property's character. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else joining us via Zoom, please use the raise hand function if you wish to speak. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 8 recommends approval.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments?
I just wanted to mention regarding the addition that we feel that the location of this property, as I mentioned, being on the end of a row, make it a good location for an addition. We feel that it's minimally visible from the cross street, as I showed you from the rear yard. And by setting it back from the cornice lines front and back, we're retaining the original character of the building and also designing it in a way that feels appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, let's go ahead and make a motion to close the hearing. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Mahan, would you second that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Chu, would you like to start this discussion?
Sure. I think that the addition of the punch windows and the bay window, along with the garage with intended historic fascia detailing, all look appropriate to me and in keeping with the style of the historic house. My comments are related to, or concerns are to the mass of the addition on the rooftop. It feels very visible from Prospect Place when I look at those views. The existing block it looks quite intact with the rear facades. This would be the only addition on the roof. I could entertain an addition, but I do think its mass is too prominently seen from Prospect Place, and I would ask the applicant to look at further increasing the setback. And the mansard aesthetic to me looks a bit awkward here, and I wonder if just a straight facade might be simpler. It's clearly an addition. There's no confusion that that is not historic. And I think that it just draws more attention to itself as proposed. Comments?
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
I would agree. The only issue I have is that I think 30 feet for the addition is quite large. And I would imagine if you could cut that back maybe 5, 10 feet. And I agree that the simplification of the facade would also help.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
I'm actually more or less okay with this as is, although I think that the suggestions made by cohorts would be good additions to it. I think that there might be possibilities to reduce the height of it a little bit. I'm also not sure about the stucco side wall. Looking at the examples that they showed of other buildings, where they had similar mid-block rooftop additions, it seemed like the side walls really kind of jumped out at you and made these additions much more kind of visually intrusive than they needed to be. And they might want to look at either extending the brick up or having the metal continue around. For some reason that the stucco just seemed inordinately loud.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, interesting comments. I think that I have no problem with the bay window. Those are correct. I agree with the rest of the comments. Michael Goldblum and Commissioner Chu made great comments. I think that to Michael Goldblum's point of view, I think with that side, with the parapet, can break the mass a little bit on the D2 view that was just before when on the two prior slides. The other thing is I agree that the massing seems a little bit too large, like the rest of the commissioners. I have no problem with they trying to modify and working to see if I have no objection on mansard roof, seeing that the applicant has shown other cases where this commission has approved. But I do agree with the comments about trying to modify it.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
I'm in agreement with Commissioner Chu. Consider eliminating the mansard language and setting back further from the rear facade.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree with my fellow commissioners. I could live with the mansard, but set it back a bit farther. I also think the suggestion that the side be something different to look as an addition, potentially lighter color, will help minimize the effect of the rooftop.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilder?
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with everyone's comments for the most part regarding the massing of the rooftop addition. I'm okay with the additions on the side with the bay window and the windows.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu, would you mind reading the motion with, I think, the comments, pretty much the comments that you had mentioned, and then ask them to explore the stucco side wall, a different material, with staff? Thank you.
Case of LPC 2604 628 Carlton Avenue, Prospect Heights Historic District, an Anglo-Italianate style row house designed by William Flanagan and built in 1871. The application is to construct a bay window and a rooftop addition. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate or damage any significant architectural features, that the massing, materials, fenestration, and details of the proposed bay window will recall bay windows, oriels, and side additions found at other buildings in the historic district, and will be compatible with the age and style of the house, that the rooftop addition will be modest in size, set back from the front rear facades, thereby maintain a sense of the building's original massing, that the materiality and simple fenestration of the rooftop addition will be in keeping with the materials and character of rooftop additions found throughout the historic district, that the proposed rooftop addition will only be visible from limited vantage points over the side facade from Carlton Avenue, and due to a gap in the street wall from the Prospect Place in the context of secondary facades, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the historic district. We do ask that the applicant relook at the rooftop addition, reduce its mass and visibility by increasing the setback or potentially as well reducing the height. In terms of the exterior cladding, we also ask that the applicant look at a more consistent approach of the addition so as to minimize its multifaceted or multi-material in the current proposal that draw undue attention to itself.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilder, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. And Mark, will you please call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu, Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder.
Aye.
8 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you. That's been approved with modifications. Please continue to work with staff. Let's move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 5, LPC 25-10880, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 1251, Lot 66, 40 Hampton Place in the Crown Heights North Historic District. This is a colonial revival style 2-family duplex designed by William Debus and built circa 1907. The application is to construct a rear yard addition.
Hi, good morning. My name is Shia Gansberg, presenting for 40 Hampton Place. So these are the historical photos of 40 Hampton Place. You have a 1940 view of 40 Hampton Place, a 1980 view of 40 Hampton Place, and a 2024 view. But we're not going to be working on the primary facade. This is located in the Northern Crown Heights District. Here are some bird's eye view from Google Maps of the location of 40 Hampton Place. It's in the middle of the block. And there's a lot of foliage in the donut. Here is a block plan showing our proposed addition. So on St. John's Place, there's a 1-story enlargement that blocks the view from St. John's Place. From Kingston Avenue, behind the, in the rear of 40 Hampton Place, there's no visibility. And on Sterling Place, if you look at the top, there's a 1-story garage, and there's a little wall that's 1 story, and from that, the addition will be visible. Here are the views and the mock-up of the 2-story rear addition that we're proposing. So if you look at the bottom, pictures 5A and 5B, that's where the mock-up will be, we see visibility from the mock-up. If you could see the green tarp, 5A is the view from across the street, and 5B is a zoomed-in view. Here is a section showing the enlargement. We're proposing a 2-story, 15 feet enlargement. Originally, we wanted to do a 3-story enlargement, but after reviewing with landmarks, and we scaled down for more context and less visibility from the street. Our proposal is for a brick enlargement, black trim windows, with a metal railing. Here is a rendered view of what we hope to look. Additionally, we would want to be putting a fence around the area. And also you could see a rendered view from Sterling Place from the location of where it would be visible. Here is a rear elevation of the proposed design that I actually apologize. Let me go back a second just to give a background on what is happening. So right now, the building does not have a facade. As you could see, there's a tarp. There was emergency work done. The owner originally started this project and he did not file for plans. He did not do it the right way. So there was a stop work order, emergency work, and after the building was stabilized, we came in now to first get the approval for rebuilding the original facade. And then now, since we are doing this, he wants to actually file and do the legal way an enlargement. So right now, there is no facade, it's just a tarp, and then you have, as you could see, the mock-up. So I apologize for not seeing it earlier. Now that I'm seeing the elevation, it reminded me. So this is actually what was approved. If you look, this is what it was approved to be rebuilt. And then in the center, this is the proposed enlargement. And we are proposing to do a CMU addition with brick veneer. So you have over here a detailed section. And here are some, the demolition plans and the proposed addition floor plans. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Chu?
So the new wall will be a brick veneer wall.
Correct.
Okay, and you're going to replicate the historic window openings, as I can see.
Yes, the only change will be that we are proposing in the center a opening so we could use
At the 3rd floor.
a door so we could the one window will change. If you the window that you have like kind of a bay window that will change, and we are proposing a door in the center to access the terrace.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question for Commissioner Ginsburg. Why is there no insulation in your cavity wall construction? I assume you're going to put insulation there. You're building a new cavity wall.
I believe it should be in the interior, but yeah.
And you have an opportunity to do it well here. I would do it on the outside.
No problem.
Comment. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Ginsburg?
Well, I'll talk more about that, but my question is, do you have a picture of what the facade looked like before it was demolished?
I didn't. I was asked this at last week. I didn't add to the presentation. It was just a very bad picture of the I forgot the word. The appraisal. For the appraisal, I shared it. I did not have it for the presentation.
And I noticed that almost every other building on this block has a 1-story bay window. Is that what was there before the demolition?
There was a bay window, and there was also a other enlargement with the bay window, covering the two smaller windows on the door. So the bay window would have been to the left where the single window is, and there was a enlargement covering partially that bay window and the door and the two windows.
And then finally, why did the owner do work without a permit?
I guarantee you he is now very sorry. Since this has been stalled for a year, he has learned. I don't think he was educated.
And did he have an architect?
Not to my knowledge.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Wilder?
Sorry, how did you determine the depth of the extension of the rear yard?
We, by zoning resolution, what we are allowed, but yeah. I mean, we technically, I think, have maybe 5 inches, but we just did a standard 15 feet.
Any other questions? Okay. Let's see if there's anybody in the room who would like to testify on this item. Noting that there isn't, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Thompson for remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. The first speaker will be Manor Fatima.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Manur Fatima. I'm speaking on behalf of HDC. HDC finds the proposed changes to be inappropriate. These duplex houses, also popularly called Kinko houses after the Kings and Westchester Land Company, have been unique to Brooklyn's history in the early 20th century. Eliminating the building's distinctive duplex features like the triple window and the historic bays in the bottom for the rear yard extension would disrupt the historic rhythm of this row and diminish its architectural integrity. Thank you.
The next speaker is Christina Conroy.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. Now, this is one of a row of so-called Kinko two-family duplex houses. They were named for the original developer of this type, the King's Land Development Company. There are several clusters of these houses in Brooklyn, including the Park Slope Historic District, but the largest grouping is within the Crown Heights North 3 Historic District. The houses are characterized by widely separated entrances, one for the lower duplex, one for the upper. Usually the main floor of each unit can be identified by larger windows or other specialized architectural treatments that identify the floors as the main living space for the unit. Now, these are typically on the ground floor of the lower unit and the third floor of the upper unit. In the case of these long rows, of which number 40 is a part, these distinguishing characteristics are on the rear facades. An oriel window at the ground floor and large type triple windows at the third floor mark these locations. With one minor exception, at these special windows, oriels and triple windows are intact for the entire row. Now, even though these are rear facades, these are significant architectural features of this house on the row and should be retained. We understand that the work began at this rear facade without permits and that the staff subsequently issued permits for some of the work. We hope this permitted work didn't include removal of the oriel and triple windows. These significant features of this row should not have been removed. If they were removed in violation, they should be restored. If they were removed prior to designation, reconstruction of the rear wall allows the Commission to mandate new features that tie this building architecturally back into the row. And it should not be difficult to incorporate these special windows into the new interior layout. Thank you, Commissioners.
Anyone else joining via Zoom who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. Being none, I'll note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 8 recommends denial, noting the potential visibility of the extension.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments?
The owner has acknowledged that, you know, we might have to bring some architectural features back, and he's open to that idea. Obviously, in a way that it would work with interior layouts. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Wilder, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Mahan, would you like to start this discussion?
Sure. The demolition, of course, is, you know, unfortunate and casts a little bit of a cloud over the whole, you know, effort here, but understand it seems, you know, maybe there wasn't full understanding present there on the owner's part. I think this is pretty straightforward. I agree that the presence of a bay window was historically significant, as recognized, you know, in a way in the previous LPC approval, which, you know, now is being sought to be superseded by a new approval. So I think there should be a new bay window incorporated. I question the depth of the rear yard extension as well, and if it could be reduced somewhat to reduce the impact on the integrity of the row.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
So I agree with those comments. I'd make one or two other comments. In the approved facade, there are two windows on the third floor, a bay and a regular. I think adding the door is problematic, and I would make one of the windows a bay and the other window a door, and not have the third one. And besides that, the other comment is, this is, although not in our purview, with the interior insulation that you have, as Commissioner Chu pointed out, you have significant thermal breaks, which doesn't meet the energy code. And it would be fairly simple to make this into an insulated cavity wall and make the building much more energy efficient, which not only would then meet code, but should be in your client's interest, since it will cut their energy costs.
Commissioner Ginsburg, are you saying that a bay window above and elements of the bay window to the addition as well?
Yeah, I
Or is
also
it
think
either or?
that I could probably go either way. I also agree with Commissioner Mahan that the additions should be reduced in depth.
Okay.
Can I just clarify further, when you use the phrase bay window, talking about the third floor, let's call it, are you talking about just that it's the tripartite window, that original opening, not a sort of projecting oriel type window? You want them to maintain that opening with three windows?
That what's shown there is unclear. It could just be it's a
That's all.
tripart, not a bay.
Correct. So historically, the row had very shallow oriel type bay windows just at the lowest level.
Right.
And then at that third floor, it was tripartite but flat.
Okay. So I'd say the tripartite but flat would be all right, and potentially on the addition doing some sort of bay if they could, but also reducing the depth of the addition.
And you were further suggesting that not to put the window between the two.
Correct.
But to use one of the openings as a door.
Correct.
Okay. And I just wanted to also clarify, because the testimony talked about all of the windows at the back as special windows, which actually none of them are special windows as defined in the rules. The oriels themselves are significant architectural features. That's a different term we use. And I don't know that the report says anything about, significant architectural features when it's talking specifically about the upper floor windows. These are still rear facades. Now, it does happen that probably almost all of them are visible to some extent at the upper floors. And therefore, staff level rules wouldn't allow many modifications to those upper floor windows anyway, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilder?
Yeah, I think there's, in, what's this image 5B, bottom right? I think we can't see it, but it's something potentially interesting about being able to see those row of Oriole windows at the ground floor. And in the rendering on page 7, it sort of takes away what that could be. And so I think that for me gives me like justification in saying that the rear yard extension shouldn't be as deep, I guess. I can understand or accept having something there, but definitely not that deep. So I can be, like I said, I can be open to finding the addition appropriate, but not as far, because I think there is something interesting about being able to see from one side to the other.
Thank you. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I agree with several comments of my fellow commissioners. I would say that on the third floor, as Mark has put, to retain the historic window openings and to make the window a door, I think is appropriate. Retains the basic elevation of the upper 2 floors. On the addition, I would reduce the depth of the addition, maybe 5 feet, and I think that would help, because right now it does feel like a bit of an intrusion. This block is a bit unique. It has a big housing building on. Okay. So the reduction of the depth of the addition, however, I could find the addition appropriate because of the unusual character of this block, having a large scale building right on the rear.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
I agree with Commissioner Shu. Some of the issues, the issue of the bay window, though, it's one on the ground floor, is one that really preoccupies me, whether we should add it or not, especially if it's sticking out that much, the volume. And as a kind of a reminder of what was there, I would recommend putting it in. But it has to be done carefully and thoughtfully.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
Thanks. I'm most concerned about the remarkable uniformity of this row. This is virtually the only addition proposed in the row, and the uniformity is really striking. And I'm therefore reluctant to have any rear yard addition. If there were one, I think it should be only 1 story tall. The lower levels of the block do appear to have some variety to them, although that's where the notable window is. But they, just looking at the photos provided, and I'm troubled by the breaking of the pattern of this remarkably pristine block in general. I agree with Mark's comments about the upper facade being restored to addition, but I have trouble with the 2-story addition.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, and not to add more confusion, I think but I think one thing that is a consensus is obviously if you're looking at, for example, the drawing number, the picture number 2 in the middle on the upper row, that tripartite window is Yeah, as I was saying, if you look at the drawing, the picture number 2 on the upper row, that tripartite window is very consistent. So however we worked out, I think that should be figured into the consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello? I think I lost my mic.
Hello? Yeah. Doesn't work here.
Testing, testing, hello?
Testing,
Go to the
testing.
door now.
Test, test. Abby, you can confirm you can hear this.
Okay, so we're gonna continue. Commissioner Mayen, I think perhaps we can read it with a lot of what you had said, that the Oriole be incorporated, the depth, the depth reduced, the tripartite studied with staff, and then one of the windows being made a door. So
The tripartite third floor.
yes, made a door, reduced. I think work with staff. Let's and the Oriole incorporated.
Yeah, I do think it would be helpful to understand because there's some design issues here and it has to do with potentially with, what future applicants might do at neighboring houses. With regard to putting the Oriole on the end of this addition, once it's reduced in its depth, it looks to me, and I think what we understand these Orioles is they were always off, I think to the left side. So if the Oriole is, if you all want to see it put off to the left side and then maybe there's just a door to the right of it, a simple door, we can follow that. Yeah. So follow the pattern sort of at the ground level. And the commission is comfortable with the larger combined opening at the floor above that as part of the rear addition. I mean, I don't think anyone kind of discussed what the resulting design would be. So maybe Abby, if we could put is it possible to put the rear facade back on the? It may be that, we could have them, come back, show us these revisions, and that will include all of these floors that we're discussing. Yeah, that's fine. We'll work with the applicant. We heard a reduction. I think we heard to 10 feet from 15 for the rear addition and these other comments about the Oriole and the rest of the fenestration. So we can have them work on that and come back with the full composition to show you.
Yeah. So we're going to take no action today, but I think you've heard a lot of the comments from the commissioners. I think we're close, but if you could incorporate some of these comments, I think that would be very helpful. Thank you.
All right, we'll now move to the next item. It's public hearing item number 6, LPC 26-04779, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 179, Lot 66, 139 Franklin Street in the Tribeca West Historic District. This is an early 20th century commercial style All right, I'll continue where I left off on 139 Franklin Street. This is an early 20th century commercial style warehouse with neo-Renaissance style elements designed by Mannequin Frank and built in 1909. The application is to replace entrance and storefront infill, modify a loading dock and canopy, demolish a rear extension, modify the rear facade, and construct a rooftop addition.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Ed Rawlings, Principal of Rawlings Architects. With me is Senior Designer Rachel Herwalt. We'll be presenting together and speak up a little bit. You bet. Can you hear me now? As loud as I can. Okay. Thank you very much, Commissioners. We understand your day is going a little slower, so I'll try to keep it quick. Project we're talking, keyboard is the arrow? Okay, we're talking about 139 Franklin Street. Franklin Street near Finn Square in Tribeca, which you can see here. Design team, some previous projects with the design team and developer that we've worked on. And the project itself, located at 139 Franklin, designed by Meineke and Frank, 1909. This slide is important to show you in that the 1891 map on the upper right shows when the building was built, and then Varick Street was extended through after that, after the building was built. And I bring that up because the building's side facades or secondary facades are more visible now because of the extension of Varick Street, and that'll show up as we get into the rooftop addition. I think the overall description is clear. We're talking about a rooftop addition, restoration of the storefront and the canopy, some modifications to the loading dock, and removal of a rear extension. And conversion, I should also add that the Sophia Brothers building was used as a self-storage building for many years, and it has not had any meaningful work done to it since the district was designated. Rachel, do you want to take over?
So up on this slide, you see historic photos from the 1940s, from the municipal tax archives. There's a few vantage points here. Number one is across Friend Square, standing on West Broadway. Number two is standing closer to the corner of Varick and Franklin. 3 is kind of mid-block on Franklin, looking east. And then number 4 is looking west, standing on Varick, and you can see a little bit of a glimpse of the rear extension that is part of the proposed removals. Here are those roughly same vantage points today. And then a little farther away from various vantage points, kind of showing how you see the building. So as Ed mentioned, this is a proposed residential conversion. As a part of our proposal, we're suggesting to remove the rear cellar first and second floor extension that exists, that's circled in red on the upper photograph, as well as a water tower and 2 existing elevator bulkheads. Not super clear in this imagery, but you'll see in some following imageries, we're also proposing to remove a fire escape that exists at the rear of the building. As a part of the proposal, we're proposing a new unoccupied roof bulkhead, which we'll show you the plan in a minute, as well as a new wall at the rear, which will be in plane with the current upper story walls in place of the extension that's being proposed to be removed. Here's some photographs of the existing conditions at the rear. So what you're seeing is the roof of that rear extension. And then you can see the fire escape and the facade above it. So here in plan on the left, you see the existing roof condition. In red are the proposed removals. As I mentioned earlier, there's a water tower as well as 2 existing elevator bulkheads, some skylights, and then on the right-hand side, the footprint of the extension that we're proposing to remove, which exists at the cellar first and second floors. The proposed roof plan cites the new bulkhead as well as mechanical equipment and screening to the corner of the building, which is least visible from various streets. We've made some effort to keep the size of that bulkhead small. We're only proposing 1 elevator. We've gotten approval from the Department of Buildings to not include an emergency generator in our renovation. So what you see program-wise here is 2 egress stairs and an elevator, which access community or common recreation space at the roof, as well as tucked behind that interior bulkhead, some mechanical equipment. There is an interior pump room as well. And then a stair which accesses a private terrace. The upper right-hand part of the page shows the upper level of the proposed bulkhead, which has some fans as well as the overrun for the elevator and an elevator machine room. So in section, red is proposed to be removed. Yellow is proposed addition. Zoning wise, what we're proposing is as of right, the elements that are considered on the roof are permitted obstructions within the parameters that zoning allows. So moving around the building in elevation, this is the primary facade. You can see in red the scale of the existing water tower. And then in yellow on the right, the scale of the new bulkhead being proposed. We've also highlighted in red at the ground level proposed removals of existing infill. And the loading dock is highlighted in red, but really it's a kind of renovation that's being proposed of that loading dock. That in a little more detail later on. So again, here on the left, red shows removals, right shows proposed scale of the bulkhead. This is a secondary facade. And then at the rear, what you're seeing at the bottom in red is the extent of the existing extension that's proposed to be removed. And then at the top of the building, red is removed, yellow is new. And then likewise on the west facade. So from directly across the street on Franklin, the proposed bulkhead is not visible from the street. And then moving away from the building to the corner of Varick and Franklin, there's 3 images here. There's the existing condition. There is the mock-up, a photo of the mock-up in place, and then a sketch of the proposed bulkhead. So the proposed bulkhead is very limited in visibility from this vantage point. When you move a little further away from the building across Finn Square, same format here. Existing is at the top left, mock-up is at the bottom left, and then the sketch of the proposed bulkhead you see as the largest image on the page. And then here, moving down West Broadway, this is the corner of West Broadway and Leonard. Same kind of images here. You do see the mechanical screen. And then standing mid-block on Franklin, looking east, you do have a minimal visibility of the bulkhead. It's a little confusing because there's a mock-up on the adjacent building as well. So there's a couple of extra swaths of orange there. So here's a few views standing further away from the building so you get a sense of how visible the bulkhead as proposed is. So number 1 and 2 are on Franklin Street further west, and then 3 and 4 are a little bit further south on West Broadway. And then 5 is looking down Leonard. You can't see any of what we're proposing to do from that vantage point. And then 6 and 7 are both a little farther to the east on Franklin. So here we have an enlarged front and side elevation of the proposed bulkhead. We are proposing materials that are utilitarian in nature, zinc panel for the wall, and then an expanded mesh screen for portions of the mechanical screen at the upper level of the bulkhead. At the rear, we're proposing to match the new facade with the old. So it will be in plain, and we're carrying the window pattern down on the first and second floors, and then at the cellar floor, which is not visible from the street, there's a variation in the fenestration pattern.
Added here that the building that is on Barrack Street, and see if I, building here is on Barrack Street, and so it obscures both the cellar and the first floor.
And you can see that from this slide as well. So on the left, you do see the upper story of that rear extension. And then on the right, the proposed wall in plane with what is above. So moving to the street level primary facade, this is some various photographs of the existing conditions. There is a quite nice stone element surrounding the main building entrance. Much of what is left of the, historic loading doors it's a little bit of a hodgepodge. There are some historic doors. You can see the bottom, I guess, second and fourth image show a kind of tripartite door at the bottom with a 2-light transom above, but it's not all left there. One thing interesting that we did find, which is the upper right photograph, is that there are some existing windows in that loading dock which are currently concealed.
That image is from the inside in the cellar. Looking out.
Sorry, I went
You
too
can
fast.
see the
So here we have some enlarged elevations existing and proposed at the ground level. You'll note that our proposal is to maintain the transom windows, repair them, and replace the glazing for the loading bays, but actually maintain the transom above the building entrance door. And then the proposed condition for the building entrance does propose an asymmetric 2-leaf scenario to provide an accessible entrance. The current 2 doors are not wide enough to allow for wheelchair passage, so one is wider than the other in the proposed. And then the door that's all the way on the right is a egress door and service entry door, and so that one doesn't have the same accessibility requirements. So we're able to maintain that as a 2 equal leaf door. At the loading dock, we're proposing an infill that does echo the original division of 3, and some of those would be operable, opening to the building lobby behind. We have the other thing that we're proposing that I neglected to mention is a restoration of the canopy. It is, the proposal is to replace its cladding with glass. And so there's an example actually on the same street on Franklin. The green storefront there has a glass canopy there. And that's what we're proposing here. So just some larger scale elevations of what we just spoke about. I should note we're also proposing a railing around the loading dock because it is more than 30 inches above the adjacent door. Some more detailed sections at the building entrance. There's currently an existing roll down grill, which we're proposing to remove. But as I mentioned earlier, maintaining the existing transom and glazing as well as the mullion, and then replacing the door and frame below. I forgot to mention that there are some vault lights that we're planning to restore. So you see those in section here. Those exist just right at the building entrance. And here's a section through the loading dock, existing and proposed. So again, here we're proposing to maintain the transom windows and the mullion. That glass, I believe, will be replaced, but we'll restore the frames. And then below the horizontal mullion, proposing to replace the doors with new infill. And then we're proposing to bring back those painted steel windows at the sidewalk vault, as well as a new painted steel guardrail surrounding the loading dock. And then here are two detail sections of railings. The one on the right is the loading dock, so tubes painted. And then the one on the left is the proposed guardrail detail for the roof. We are proposing a frameless glass system, which has a base shoe, glass panels, and then a stainless steel channel at the top. There's no vertical metal in this section. That's it.
So, I guess one thing we probably also want to clarify is that the top of the existing parapet varies a little bit in height, and we're proposing to level that out and provide a new coping stone there. But we are not proposing to raise the height of the parapet and instead provide this railing at the top.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Ginsburg?
The mechanical screen, that's required by zoning?
Is required by zoning, and we've taken, as Rachel explained, we've taken some great effort to make sure we put the mechanical equipment to the south and to the west, which are the least visible parts of it. And also because what we have up there, as she said, we don't have a generator, but we do have outside air units, and we do have heat pump units, which create some noise. And so we want to acoustically separate those from the neighbors.
Thank
so
you.
That's why it's solid.
Commissioner Wilder?
Quick question about the removal of the fire escapes. Can you kind of, I'm sorry if I missed it, can you go a little more detail about why you're removing them? And then also, how does that removal impact the existing brick facade?
Yeah, we're proposing to remove them. They are not required by building code or life safety. We don't think that using a fire escape and life safety is a preferred means of egress, number one. Number two, they're on the back facade, they're non-ornamental. So we believe removing them is better for light and air for both our building and the buildings opposite. And our plan would be to, as we remove that metal from the facade, to patch and restore with matching material.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Jefferson?
On page 13, your mechanical screen and bulkhead, the 10 feet lower than the bulkhead. Is there any reason you didn't keep it?
Yeah, the reason we did that is partly because of zoning and partly to reduce the apparent bulk of the bulkhead. There's a limitation of 50% and then 30% obstructions, and so our mechanical screen is below that 50% threshold, which you can see here. And let me see if I can, that line right there. And so all of the mechanical corral, if you will, is in that area. And then above that, it's rendered as that expanded metal mesh, which forms the guardrail and the screen around the fans up on the upper roof. So I don't know if we have an elevation here. Let's see if I can get to that. Back one. So there you can see this is the screen portion that is rendered in the solid zinc panel, and then we have a channel to break up the scale, and then this becomes the expanded mesh guardrail, which is more trim. Only the elevator overrun and machine. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, the issue is that it becomes very three-dimensional. Draws the eye to it, and it'd be simple.
Yeah, this would then have to extend up back here, then be a non-conformity. Trying to keep it lower.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay. Going to public testimony, I'm going to note that there's nobody in the room to testify. So I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Thompson to see if we have any remote testimony.
Anyone joining via Zoom who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. The first speaker will be Manor Fatima.
Hello, I am Manor Fatima speaking on behalf of HDC. While HDC does not object to adaptive reuse and understands the desire to convert this industrial building into housing, we are deeply concerned by the proposed removal of a suite of historical features that collectively define the building's identity. The original double entrance doors, loading bay doors, and related transoms contribute not only to the historic character of the streetscape, but also serve as tangible reminders of the building's commercial and industrial past. The removal of the fire escape, and more notably the water tank, an iconic silhouette atop many New York lofts, would erase critical features of its historic fabric. Moreover, an asymmetrical entrance door can be seen as out of character for this type of building and may not be reflective of the original design intent. Such losses would interrupt the architectural narrative, not just of this building, but the entire historical district. While the new use is not itself objectionable, we urge the applicant to retain, restore, and carefully replicate the defining features and the building's original symmetry as a tribute to Tribeca's industrial history. Thank you.
The next speaker will be John Graham. It looks like John Graham has left the Zoom. Just giving him a few more seconds. Here we go.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. The proposed use of this industrial building for housing is a fine example of adaptive reuse. The proposed rooftop additions, while visible, will be an appropriately modest change. However, the expanded metal mesh screening proposed will have the effect of greatly increasing the visibility of these additions. The screening should be minimized and changed to a much less opaque design. Other aspects of the proposal are not appropriate. They will weaken the historic industrial character of the building. They will unnecessarily remove too much historic material and too many historic and character-defining details. The iconic rooftop water tower is fully visible against the sky. It's an important feature that should be retained, even if it no longer holds water. Similarly, the unadorned fire escape at the rear, seen for nearly the full height of the building, contributes to its character and should remain. The paired wood doors at the main entrance are nicely detailed, historic, and likely original. They should be refurbished and retained. The entrance doors can be opened, operated electrically as a pair, resolving any access issues. The proposed asymmetrical entrance door is not appropriate. The loading bays with historic and probably original wood infill, beadboard panels, and fancy molded corners are very rare survivors. The proposed new doors are generic wood and glass doors as drawn and do not incorporate the fine detailing of the originals. The original infill should be retained with allowances for modifications to make them operational or for use as outer security doors. These are the kinds of features that should be preserved on these buildings. Finally, Commissioners, the microphone at the podium the applicants use isn't working well today. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Anyone else joining us via Zoom who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 1 recommends approval.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to respond to the comments?
I guess one question would be, I thought that the expanded mesh was a less solid material, and so I didn't really understand that comment to make it something more transparent than the expanded mesh. So I'm not sure if commissioners have any ideas on that, but I guess I would open it up to that. We can look at the idea of symmetrical doors, but it does have to be fully ADA accessible, so that would require some study. And I guess I'd like to hear comments about the storefront as well. The existing doors are fully opaque, which isn't really appropriate for the lobby behind it to have opaque doors.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Goldblum, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that?
So second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Chu, would you like to start this discussion?
Okay. Various elements on this proposal. I think I'll just start from the rooftop. It seems to me that the rooftop, the applicant has really done a lot of work to try to minimize its mass and its location in terms of the sight lines from the sidewalk. You can still see it from distant views of the avenue, which frankly, I think would be very hard to prevent that. I'm okay with the massing and the design as being proposed for the mechanical bulkhead. I think most of the mass is at that lower datum, which is close to the height of the upper raised facade element. I think it's expected that a building of this scale with the conversion will need a significant amount of equipment there. And I do support this adaptive reuse. I think it's a great how to take a industrial building and for housing. The water tower, I do agree, is an iconic element in the skyline. It looks clearly that the applicant has redone the systems, not requiring it anymore. Whether or not that should be retained, I could actually be open to that. If that is because of the visibility of this location, that water tower really is sort of an iconic moment on your building, and I would be interested to see water. The entry downstairs, the storefront, I would support some of the comments made that the detailing could emulate more what is there. I recognize that is opaque, but I do think that the elevation could match more closely what's there, the historic condition, and still allow for the glazing within those panels. The symmetry of the entry doors, I agree as well, should be retained and not to do the asymmetric side light. Like the applicant to relook at that. In terms of the removal of the existing addition, I think that's okay. It's really minimally visible from the sidewalk. It was an addition. It looks like they're going to restore the facade to the window pattern historic above. I find that appropriate. About the fire escapes, I do think because of the height and mass of this building, those fire escapes on that facade are quite characteristic. I think in the past where we found that they were somewhat character defining, we have come to compromises to potentially even lose the ladders, but keep the baskets on the facade. And I think that would help with the layering of this building's history. So those are my comments.
Just wanted to address a few things that came up in the commentary. I think it, goes without saying, a lot of people, probably a lot of you all, really like water tanks, and they are things that are prominent on rooftops and in the New York City skyline. However, the commission has always considered them to be utilitarian mechanical equipment, and this is absent of them being part of some architectural gesture where they're part of the design of a tower or something like that. And the fact of the matter is, those can be removed with staff level permits. So they come up in discussion sometimes, even with you all, but as a separate application, those that could be removed. Just a couple other notes as well. The door and sort of asymmetrical doors versus paired doors. The reason this is before you at all is because the pair of doors, this is at that chamfered corner, are the actual original doors. If those original doors had already been replaced, staff would be able to approve the asymmetrical doors because they're often a necessary change for barrier-free access. But there is a provision in the rules. It does say if there are historic doors present, then staff can't do that change. So you all can comment on it and find that you don't find that to be appropriate. But I just want to point out that it is done very frequently at staff level when the historic doors are gone. And then the last is the fire escape. Certainly in this historic district, fire escapes are a significant layer on many of the streetscapes. However, I just kind of, again, want to point out with staff level rules, certainly at a front facade in a historic district where they are character defining features, they can't be removed at all. In other cases, if there are design decorative elements, that's another reason why they couldn't be removed. Just making the distinction that this, again, is a very secondary facade without any decorative elements to it. So it may be that still at staff level that couldn't be removed because of the district that's within and it's visible, but otherwise it would be the type of thing that could be removed by the staff.
Thank you, Corey. Commissioner Wilder?
Sure. I agree with a lot of the comments from Commissioner Chu. I think the rooftop addition, the bulkhead, I think it's probably as modest as it can be. I think it's very functional and necessary for this type of project, this size building. So I can find it appropriate. I think I'm okay with the water tower being removed. The rear yard, not rear, but the rear extension of the building, I'm okay with that being removed. The fire escape, I think it is a nice characteristic of the building, but I can be okay with that being removed if that's the applicant's preference. At the entrance, the loading dock, I think there's a few things happening at the existing loading dock, which I don't find that it necessarily needs to be retained exactly how it is, and so I can accept and find the proposed designs appropriate. And then as far as the entrance doors, I I think the asymmetrical doors, I think the existing doors are more appropriate than the asymmetrical doors, but I can be okay if the other commissioners are.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
So in general, I agree with my other fellow commissioners. I want to flag that this may be one of the first of many things. The City of Yes zoning requires the screening of mechanical. And so we may not always be happy with that, but that's now required. And my understanding is if you have a water tank, a new water tank, you would need to screen that too. So I think removing the water tank may be better than screening it if it was maintained, although I would love to see it maintained. The fire escape, although it is a secondary facade, they're visible, and it is the one thing animating that facade. So I think keeping the baskets would be good. Fine to get rid of the stairs on that. And I'd be fine with the asymmetrical doors because the electric openers, although meeting accessibility requirement, are a pain, breakdown, etc. But I could go either way on that. And I agree that the changes in the ground floor make sense, but they should work with staff to make sure to get the details to match what was there in historic as best they can, as possible.
Okay. Commissioner Ginsburg, let me just ask you, did you say that you are okay with the asymmetrical doors or the symmetrical doors?
I'm okay with the asymmetrical.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's staff level, but okay. Commissioner Mayen?
I thought this was a lovely adaptive reuse project. It's going to be a lovely Tribeca residential building. Everything is very simple, very careful. I can wholeheartedly support this. Starting from the top, I think the bulkhead is appropriately scaled given the scale of the building. It's not an insignificant building. I initially questioned the use of the expanded metal mesh, but when it was explained a bit further, I actually want to compliment the applicant on the care given to the design. There are reveals that align carefully with parapets and sort of other careful considerations that weren't discussed explicitly, but I think give a level of elegance to the design. I'm okay without the fire escape. It's on a back, secondary facade. I'm okay with the asymmetrical doors. I think that is perfectly logical, and will still, retain a sense of the historic doors. I'm okay with the proposal for the loading dock. So I'm okay with everything as is.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I agree with many of the comments from my colleagues. I think this is a classic example of a good adaptive reuse. I commend the applicant for putting a lot of thoughtful design into it. I have no problem with removing the back addition. I think by making it symmetrical, bringing it to residential windows, those are fine. I have historically, as most of you know, I have historic fondness for retaining the fire escapes, but despite the LPC rules. But I think I agree with the comment to the degree that to the basket, that if you want to retain the basket, that'll be fine. I do agree that with the testimony that the ground floor details on the storefront area, entry area, should work with staff as closely as possible in trying to retain and explore and be sensitive to the historic details. As to the asymmetrical door is, obviously, we love symmetry, as Commissioner Jefferson liked to say, but I'm fine with the asymmetrical, given the reality of the, as we have approved many of the asymmetrical doors for ADA access. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
Thanks. Okay, so from the bottom up, the rear removal and modifications to the back facade at the lower levels is appropriate. The asymmetrical door, I think, is well within the ambit of things that we've approved in the past, as long as the detailing is a good match with what was there. In terms of the loading dock, I think the restoration of the windows is really wonderful. The railing looks fine, simple. It should be painted like it's shown here, dark color to match the loading dock. I do have trouble with the doors. I think that if you have two sets of historic doors that are in decent shape, and I don't know if they are in decent shape, I think they should be retained. If they want to modify them and cut windows into them, I think that's okay, but I wouldn't change the pattern or style. And I think that the use of them as a template for the other two bays would be the way to go. I think changing the design would be unnecessary. I think they could achieve their design intent and their, the desire to brighten the interior space while maintaining historic material to the extent possible and replicating it where not. I think the canopy is a very nice addition. I think the rear yard fire escapes, Corey's description of the usual standards conforms with my recollection of how we generally handle those things. So while I think the retention of the baskets would be nice, I don't think I would personally feel like it's something that I would have to mandate as a condition of an appropriateness finding. In terms of the rooftop, I'm troubled by the idea of holding on to the water tower just as a kind of a icon. Much as I think it'd be kind of cool, I think I worry about that as a kind of a literally empty gesture. However, looking at the building's impression on the city from a distance, its presence as a large, bulky, technical thing on the roof, and along with that, the presence of a bulkhead that extends the sidewall up and is painted to match the sidewall, to me should form a little bit more of a template for how the visible rooftop addition should be handled. My biggest concern with it is not its size or its visibility, but its materiality and design. And that doesn't, I'm not talking about the expanded metal, I'm talking about the zinc panels, which are very visible from a distance and I think will look like a very modern addition to this building. The building has had a history of rooftop accretions that are quite visible from a distance. I don't think that this should really depart from the way they were handled. So I think the applicant could work with the staff to either have the parts that are coplanar with the exterior facades carry the facade material up, like the bulkhead does now, maybe up to the screening, and then the screening takes over. The panelizing, it just has the scale of a modern paneled building as opposed to, let's say, a standing seam or what you would normally see on a rooftop. I mean, another way to look at it is, the bulkhead, maybe that should kind of take inspiration from the water tower. I think that the design of it as a kind of finished, modern, rather generic metal paneled structure is not the way to go. To have this engage in a dialogue with a building that has had a history of rooftop additions, I don't have a problem with the volume or placement of it, but I do have a problem with the expression of it. I think they could work with staff to improve that.
Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson.
For the clarification, because I needed that. I think the rooftop addition works well for me, even though it's modern and fits into the geometrically. I think you don't see it from the front facade, but from different points of view along the city. I think an adaptive reuse, this is thought through. I think most of the comments by the commissioners touch upon my comments, so I can project.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to attempt to kind of summarize, I think, where this is headed. Generally, I think broad support for this adaptive use project, and maybe starting with the top with regard to the rooftop work. Again, understanding the fondness for the water towers and acceptance that it's something that's regularly done and practical and appropriate in this sense, in addition to the volume of the rooftop addition that's being proposed. But we can ask the applicants to study sort of the design materiality and maybe look for a better recall of the historic bulkhead and tank materials and design that are there, but otherwise okay in supporting of the size and visibility of that rooftop addition. With regard to the fire escape, I think it was close. It seemed like there may be enough votes to okay removing the entire fire escape, but perhaps again they could consider keeping just the landings if that's something that they want to do as an amenity. But I think maybe we could see if we have enough votes for removing that fire escape at the rear in its entirety. Support for removing the sort of chamfered rear extension at the back fully and patching that in with new matching brickwork and windows. And then with regard to the front, again, I think it was close. I think I was hearing that there is enough support for the asymmetrical doors at that main at-grade entrance if they are to otherwise match the historic detailings as closely as possible. But again, we can ask them to consider using an actuator and keeping the historic doors if that's something that works for their program. And then I think last, with regard to the infill below the canopy, really looking to retain, I think, the remaining historic doors, loading doors, paneled doors, but the possibility of modifying them to incorporate glazing and then using that as the template to design the new infill that would go to the sides where there is no historic infill. I think that kind of covers it, but you can see if we have enough votes for that. Working with staff, yes.
Commissioner True, are you okay with reading that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the only real comment here that's substantial is buckets, we don't have enough baskets, there's not enough votes, you said, to retain.
Well, I think it does. I guess that we need to ask if any of the commissioners, let's see, maybe we start with the asymmetrical door. Do we have anyone who objects to that? Understanding the discussion that's taken place since comments. Okay. And with regard to the fire escape, it's complete removal versus retaining the baskets.
Commissioner Ginsburg, are you okay with that?
I can, yeah.
And we can have the applicant, study it if they want to retain it. Okay.
So I think that does leave the modification. Yeah. And Commissioner Goldblum asked that they also study and consider the treatment of materiality and design at the rooftop bulkhead, although I think otherwise there are enough votes for that as is.
Okay. Okay, in the case of LPC 26047791 139 Franklin Street, Tribeca West Historic District, an early 20th century commercial style warehouse with neo-Renaissance style elements designed by Maynick and Frank and built in 1909. Application is to replace entrance and storefront infill, modify a loading dock and canopy, demolish a rear extension, modify the rear facade, and construct a rooftop addition. I recommend approval with minor modification, finding that the new entrance infill featuring a dark gray finished wood single light door and side light will in fact tried to reuse the existing panels and modify them with glazing and use that as a template for the remaining 2 bays that would be new construction. That the proposed black painted horizontal railings at the loading dock will have an open quality in keeping with the typical railings found at loading docks and landings throughout the historic district. That the replacement of the corrugated metal cladding with glass at the loading dock canopy will allow the transmission of light without changing the framing elements or profiles of the historic canopy. That the removal of the existing utilitarian 3-story rear extension will not eliminate a significant architectural feature, and the new rear facade will align with and match the remaining facade in terms of material design, details, and fenestration pattern. That the proposed modest raising of the parapets will match the facades below in terms of material and finish and will not alter the building's silhouette. That the proposed glass railings set between the parapets will have a non-reflective coating, helping them to recede from view in this tall building. That the presence of a visible rooftop addition will be in keeping with historic rooftop accretions found at other buildings of this type and age. Will be seen within the context of varied streetscapes, including a variety of rooftop accretions and some taller background buildings. That the rooftop addition will not be visible directly over the primary facade, and when viewed over secondary facades from West Broadway and Franklin Street, the simple massing and typical materials consisting of gray finished zinc cladding and metal mesh screens will be consistent with the utilitarian character of the rooftop accretions within the district and will not overwhelm the building. The applicant is to work with staff on refining and finalizing the material and color choice of the rooftop addition. That the proposed work will facilitate the adaptive reuse of this historic warehouse as a residential building and will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the Tribeca West Historic District. Congratulations.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilder, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Jefferson, Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilder. With 8 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
That's been approved with modifications. Please continue to work with staff. Let's move to the next item.
Okay, and we're actually going to break for lunch in just a minute, but before we do, I do need to read one item into the record that we will not be hearing today. That's public hearing item number 7, LPC 26-05562, 109 Waverly Place in Greenwich Village Historic District. We are reading that into the record today, to be presented today. It will be shown at a future public hearing date, but I think we will ask if anyone is in the hearing room to testify on that item, public hearing item number 7, 109 Waverly Place. Seeing no hands raised, we'll ask if there's anyone on Zoom that wishes to testify on 109 Waverly Place, even though we're not going to be presenting it today.
If anyone on Zoom who wishes to testify on this item that's being read into the record, please raise your hand.
And just to be clear, that there will be an opportunity to testify when it comes back.
Seeing none.
Okay, so that item has been read into the record, again, to be presented and have testimony taken at a future public hearing date.
Thank you, Corey. So this concludes our morning session. We're going to break for lunch. It is 12:50 right now, so we're going to return at 1:20 and resume the afternoon session. We're going to ask all members of the public on Zoom to voluntarily exit at this time so that you don't experience technical difficulties returning to the afternoon session that can arise if we remove you from the meeting. Thank you.